Well, today is the 250th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. Happy birthday, United States Marines. And what better way to celebrate all of their sacrifice than by inviting a wanted terrorist to the White House to meet with President Trump? Where are all the pro-Zionist, pro-Israel shills who always warn us about Islamists infiltrating our country? Here he is. Here's the $10 million reward for Giuliani. I don't see Ben Shapiro complaining about all of this. I don't see all the guys that are like, how can we allow these Islamists in our country? There's cells all over the place right now. But we just invite one of them to the White House? Okay. I don't see Mark Levin complaining about it. Here's a guy who literally has a $10 million bounty on his head from our government for being a terrorist, killing Christians, Alawites, Druze, etc., children. And he's at the White House because he's our new puppet leader of Syria. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene posted this a short time ago. She said, the new leader of Syria is a former al-Qaeda terrorist wanted by our government who is meeting with the President Trump today at the White House on the US Marines' 250th anniversary. He rose to power in December 2024. Sanctions were lifted off of Syria in June, and many Christians and minority groups have been killed before and after sanctions were lifted. Syria is the oldest home of Christianity outside of Israel. The Apostle Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus. I pray the persecution ends not only in Syria, but all around the world. Now look at this. He arrived by the back door of the White House. They wouldn't even bring him in the front. So they arrived by the back door of the White House, and some cameras were able to capture him getting out of the SUV there. But normally he would come in the front. They would have like the color guard would be welcoming him, praising him. Maybe there even be some music playing. Nothing. They brought him in through the back door like a little rat. Then when he's inside meeting with Congressman Brian Mast and others, here's some photos inside. Congressman Brian Mast, who you may recall, of course, formerly wearing an IDF shirt, walking around the halls of Congress in an Israeli IDF shirt. Friend of the show, Kevork Almassian, one of the great journalists in the world, posted this a short time ago. If you still can't see what's happening between Giuliani and the U.S. and Israel after this photo shoot with Brian Mast, then honestly, even God himself won't be able to save you. He's right about that. We invited Syrian journalist Kevork Almassian on the show to talk about all of this. Kevork, great to see you as always, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Clayton.
This is a really dark day. I mean, it's, you know, just on the one hand, on the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Marines and U.S. soldiers who sacrificed their lives, who were sold a bill of goods about why they were going to fight these guys in the Middle East. And here we're welcoming one of their leaders right into the White House to, you know, get some nice food and hang out with the President of the United States. It's a really dark day.
Well, Clayton, I have friends in the United States who served in Iraq twice under the banner of fighting against terrorism. They went into Afghanistan. They came back physically and mentally injured. They are still suffering from PTSD. And I can see their activism nowadays on social media platforms. And I don't want to put myself in their shoes. But if I were in their shoes, I would feel betrayed by the officials and the politicians and the planners in the United States. Because from the early days of the war against Syria, and why I call it a war against Syria, because this was an orchestrated and engineered CIA regime change war against Syria. And in 2012, it was quite clear from the emails of Hillary Clinton when Jake Sullivan sent an email to Hillary Clinton saying, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. And then the Defense Intelligence Agency of the United States sent a report to Barack Obama telling him that the driving force behind the insurgency against Assad are Al-Qaeda in Iraq, are the jihadists, the Salafists, and the Muslim Brotherhood. And knowing that, Obama put his signature on Operation Timber Sycamore, meaning he gave the permission for the CIA to arm and train these multinational Takfiri jihadists in the country. And the outcome of this regime change war was basically that Giuliani, who was the founder of the Al-Qaeda offshoot in Syria, is now the de facto president of the country. But he selected himself, or probably the CIA and the MI6 selected him to lead this the transitional period in the country because they needed someone who could do a few things, one of which is to strike strategic agreements and with neighboring countries, and especially with Israel, meaning that he wants to give up on the Golan Heights and on Mount Hermon, those are Syrian territories, for Israel in exchange for a security deal with the Israelis. He will also open the markets, of course, for all the multinational corporations, and he will get a loan from the IMF. Today also he met with the head of the IMF. And accordingly, this means that the Syrian economy will turn into a privatized franchise for the multinational corporations and these loans that they will give to Syria, which means after Jolani, whoever comes, the Syrian economy will be hostage for these loans and Syria will be forever in debt. And that means whoever comes next will continue revolving in the orbit of the planners in the United States.
This is a great point because, I mean, this is very similar to what's happening in Ukraine, right? So Ukraine is now a vassal state. I mean, all of these multinational corporations basically own Ukraine, right? No one really owns you. The Ukrainian people don't own that country anymore. It's been sold off as part of all of these IMF loans, World Bank loans, etc. They will forever be indebted to these multinationals. We'll give you minerals, et cetera, for the rest of eternity. Well, I think the United Kingdom just paid off their loans to the United States for our involvement in World War II. Like, that's how long it took to pay back these monies. So this turns Syria basically into what? Into like a vassal state of these multinational corporations who just will have mineral rights to Syria, basically?
Just for context, just 1 year before the war, Syria had $7 billion external debt. That was around 12% of the total GDP, which was around 60 billion USD. But most of this debt was from the days of the Soviet Union, and nobody was asking Syria to pay this debt. So practically, Syria had zero foreign debt to the outside world. And that was really problematic in the region because the Syria's GDP was increasing exponentially during the 2005 and 2010, and its economy was growing, but based on a national economy, which means the Syrians were working and Syrians were producing and Syrians were exporting. But in a globalized world nowadays, especially that it is not allowed any longer for countries to enjoy a certain level of sovereignty, especially on their economic sector, this meant that they had to destroy the Syrian economy and suck the country dry. And now the corporations take over the reconstruction of the country. You're talking about $200 to $300 billion investments in the country. And that's why one of the conditions that the US and Britain were telling to Jolani that he cannot allow for the Chinese companies to come to Syria, and one of which are the telecommunication companies, right? And the other thing is that the Americans are going to establish bases in the country. Now, they have agreed to build or to have a military presence in Damascus because the Americans want to follow up on a potential anticipated security deal with Israel. Now, this is a very important point, Clayton, because I've seen, for example, Laura Loomer was showing some anger that Donald Trump received Jolani, and I think this is a very fake outrage because if
thank you for saying that, by the way, because I saw her saying this. She's like, I'm upset this terrorist coming to this guy Jolani's coming to the White House, but it's why do you think it's fake?
Because first of all, she doesn't mention at all the direct role of Netanyahu and his government in overthrowing the previous regime in Syria.
Bingo.
And allowing Jolani to come and take over Damascus. Jolani basically cruised from Aleppo to Damascus 400 kilometers on the highway, and nobody stopped him. Meanwhile, all the air forces were in the skies of Syria. If Israel wanted to eliminate Jolani, if Israel saw Jolani a threat to its national security, they would have eliminated him. Remember, in the past 2 years, they killed the entire leadership of Hezbollah because they presented and posed a threat to Israel. They killed the leadership of Hamas, even inside Iran, because they posed a threat for Israel. But they didn't see Jolani as a threat because from the beginning, whatever happened in the Buqa camp in Iraq, this is a very big question mark because nowadays, the former head of CIA, who is leading the CENTCOM nowadays, he's playing basketball with Jolani in Damascus But Jolani ended up in the same Bucca camp in Iraq when the head of CENTCOM back then was the head of the CIA. So there are lots of questions if they groomed Jolani in Iraq and then they sent him to Syria to lead this insurgency against Assad. Because from the beginning, I mean, Clayton, who is going to fight against the secular regime? Do you think the leftists will say, oh, I'm going to wear a suicide vest for Marx or for Lenin, or some secular person is going to drive a suicide car or a car bomb and blow up itself? No. Those are the Takfiri jihadists who will carry out this type of fighting against a secular regime because they see it an infidel regime. So they took the opportunity, and in the words of Hillary Clinton, if you remember, she said about the Afghanistan war, we had a brilliant idea, and that idea was arming these jihadists back then in Afghanistan. So they copied the same strategy in Syria. They armed these jihadists, and now they reached to power. And once they reach to power, they're showing goodwill to the US, to their basically handlers in the US and in Israel. But there is one small, in my opinion, disagreement, or there is a rift, it seems, in the US administration nowadays, how to deal with Jolani in the future. Some voices in the US administration, like Tom Barak, continue saying that everything should be in the hands of Jolani. One centralized regime, Jolani controls everything. And this is the wish of Qatar, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. But Israel has a different approach. Israel wants for Jolani to continue leading certain parts of Syria, and those are in Aleppo, Idlib, Hama Homs, and Damascus. But beyond Damascus, in the south, they want a demilitarized zone, so Jolani cannot move his forces to the south of Damascus. And they want to present themselves as the protector of the minorities in Syria after Jolani unleashed his genocidal army against the minorities. And that's why Laura Loomer was in Israel meeting with minority groups in Israel and saying that we cannot live with Jolani because in the strategic thinking of Israel, they want for Jolani to control the Sunni-dominated regions, but the regions which are not dominated by the Sunnis, they want to have certain leverage over them, and especially over Asweda, where the Druze live, and in the eastern shore of the Euphrates, where the Kurds live, and also over the Alawites. So Laura Loomer basically is doing Israel's job nowadays in Israel. And she didn't go to Syria and ask what the Syrian people want. She went to Israel reporting about the Jolani meeting with Trump. And I find that really dishonest by her, because if she was honest, she should mention, for example, that the soldiers and the militants of the Jolani army, they used to go to Israel and receive medical treatment in the Israeli field hospitals. And the former head of Mossad confessed that on Al Jazeera, that yes, we receive them and we give them medical treatment out of humanitarian reasons, right? Because he says that Al-Qaeda has never attacked Israel in the past. And I'm not calling at all for violence or calling for Al-Qaeda attack against Israel, but it's a question mark, right? Al-Qaeda attacked everyone in the region except for Israel. Why is that? That's a big question mark. Why Al-Qaeda never attacked? And I'm not calling for attack, so nobody would understand me wrong.
Did you know that the U.S. life expectancy peaked at 78 years old back in 2014? Yeah, it's been going down ever since. Global life expectancy declining for the first time in 30 years because people are aging faster than ever before. This is due to more toxins in the air, chemicals in our soil, food, other external factors that are new to us. But what most people don't know is we can actually fight against it at the cellular level. Scientists discovered that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells. It helps protect them, delay aging at the cellular level. The power of nature can outweigh the power of pharmaceuticals without the nasty side effects. And by the way, you can get all of the benefits of kimchi. Like if you don't like the taste of kimchi, some people don't like fermented cabbage or whatever. I love it. I know Philip loves it, but some people are like, yeah, I don't like that. Well, guess what? You get all of the benefits of kimchi in a simple capsule with our friends at Kimchi One. Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains, plus antioxidants and enzymes that support your digestion, your metabolism, and skin health from the inside out. As we age, we become more susceptible to microbial threats. Kimchi One is a natural antimicrobial, helping your body fight off harmful bacteria, viruses, even toxins, while boosting immunity and energy. Best of all, Kimchi One is 100% made in the U.S., all natural, non-GMO. Support your gut, protect your cells, and feel younger every day with Kimchi One from our friends at Brightcore. So right now, you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below, mybrightcore.com/redacted, for 25% off your entire order, or even better, call them. If you call them, you'll get 50% off. 50% off your order and free shipping. Give them a call right now at 888-404-6312, up to 50% off and free shipping. I take it every day as part of my supplements. I would not be able to live without it. So thanks to Kimchi, and our friends at Brightcore for supporting the show. No, but you bring up a great point. And one of the questions I had was really, why do you think that none of the pro-Israel voices, the neocon pro-Israel voices, the same people who lecture us daily about, Islamic terrorists invading the United States, haven't said a word about this? They seem to be pretty quiet about this. And yet when we call, we're calling out the Christian. I mean, you're born in Syria. You're a Christian. As we talked about in the intro, one of the strongest Christian countries in the world, until it's overrun by by people killing Christians and Alawites and Druze and everything else. So why have they been so quiet on this point, do you think?
Clayton, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've been thinking, and I was really all the time shocked why American politicians, European politicians stood on the wrong side in Syria. I was always asking myself, where is the Vatican, for example? Where are the churches in the world? Why aren't they saying something about this? Where are the leaders in the US? And I come to the realization that they are anti-Christian forces. There are anti-Christian forces. They are planning on eliminating the Christian presence in the Middle East, especially that those Christians do not align with the Christian Zionism, the ideology that they have created among the evangelicals in the United States in order to sell the illusion that there is this Judeo-Christian alliance and that we have to stand with the state of Israel for us to be blessed. For God to accept us, we have to bless Netanyahu, we have to bless Ben-Gvir. And that's a heresy, that's a wrong perception of Christianity. So they ethnically cleansed basically 90% of the Christians in Iraq and in Syria, and also from Palestine. And they are normalizing the Christian Zionism among also whoever is left in Syria, because these people nowadays are very vulnerable and they need anyone to come and save them. Imagine that Jolani attacks a town, and this town is a Christian town, and he's capable of completely genociding them. And then Israel comes and says, I'm your savior, I'm going to protect you. And at gunpoint, many people choose to be with Israel. And this is what happened, including buying many influencers. I know it myself because I was approached by an Israeli who claims to be a private person after the regime change happened. And he said, look, the regime change is done. You were fighting to keep this regime, and this regime is gone, and we have now a mutual enemy. Let's cooperate, and we will support your work on Syrian analysis, and you will become very influential on social media platforms. They offered me personally,
Wait. Israel came to you and said now...
The Israeli person came to me, and he said that he is a very rich Israeli person who has lots of companies, and he offered me support for my channel, Syrian Analysis.
To support Jolani?
No, to support the idea that Israel has to be the protector of the minorities in Syria, so that I would be normalizing Israel presenting itself as a protector of the minorities in Syria. Because I'm influential on X, and I have a big following, and many Syrian Christians, for example, also watch my content and follow what I write on X. So they wanted to capitalize and invest in my work.
So in other words, as an Orthodox Christian, maybe we should convert to a form of sort of Christian Zionism now, because Israel is my protector. And here's Kevork out on social media. He's really pushing this idea. Maybe I should start to think about supporting Christian Zionism. It's unbelievable.
I was invited to Israel by him. He said, when you come to Israel, you will see that the situation is not like you think it is. And I know he says that you're not an anti-Semite, so we would accept you. So the only thing that he wants is to tone down my criticism of Israel. And my criticism of Israel comes based on my perception that Israel is wrong on collectively punishing everyone for October 7, for example, in Gaza, despite my differences and disagreements with many of the groups fighting against Israel. And I think that the trigger for the regime change war in Syria was not by the US itself, but by the neocons and the Zionists in the United States, convincing the planners in the US that this regime change war has to happen, and then we have to Balkanize the country, Syria. And this is what is happening, ongoing, as we speak nowadays. I asked many people, including a former Marine veteran, who is also a regular guest on your channel, Scott Ritter, for example. He says, I can't think of anything else but Israel. Israel is the reason why they started this war, because Syria posed a threat for the dominance of Israel in the region, and it was aligning itself with Iran and other actors in the region who used to pose economic and security threat or challenge, let's say, for the absolute Israeli dominance over the region. But once the regime change war happened, I think now the region is mostly revolving around Israel, and everybody is running after normalizing ties with Israel. It's the Abraham Accords, and it's only a matter of time until Jolani also joins the Abraham Accords. But there are steps, they have to first strike a security deal, and then you will see, for example, does anyone in the United States thinks that this congressman who received Jolani, his name is Brian Mast, Brian Mast is beyond Israel first, right? He wears an IDF uniform inside Congress. Is there anyone who thinks that Israel would object the visit of Jolani to the United States? And if the Israelis objected his visit to the United States, would Brian Mast receive him? That's impossible. So I think Jolani has already presented his cards that he's ready to join the Abraham Accords, and it's only a matter of time until Syria becomes its entirety revolving under the American umbrella. And this was, unfortunately, an outcome that many people wanted to avoid. Not that we don't want relationship with the United States, in the contrary, but we want friendly relationship with the United States and not the master and slave relationship. We wanted to preserve the sovereignty of the United States and keep good relationship with the US and with the other regional and international powers. We don't have any problem with the United States. The United States is 10,000 kilometers away from us. People think that the Middle Eastern people hate the United States. No. I grew up on American pop music, on hip-hop music. I watched Hollywood movies. I have never had any bad sentiments toward American culture or American products, right? But we wanted to preserve our dignity. We wanted to stay in our homes. We wanted to preserve our national economy, and everything is gone nowadays. So unfortunately, it's like the WEF when they say you will own nothing and you will be happy, and you will see all these people celebrating in the streets the demise of their nation. It's an unfortunate truth, but they have propagandized the people so much that they think now they are free. But I think that they have put the chain in the neck of Jolani and Syria, especially with this IMF now deal. And whoever comes next in Syria, they will be forever in debt. And that's the economic hitman playbook.
What does this mean? I'll get you out of here on this, Kevork. What does this mean for the so-called war on terror? I mean, was it ever about fighting terrorism at all? I mean, when we have a terrorist literally meeting with President Trump this afternoon and all the sacrifice of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, or was the idea of fighting the war on terror just an idea just for weaponizing it for the United States and Israeli interests, wiping out world leaders, regime change? What does it mean?
It was a great opportunity and an excuse for the US and the Zionists, the neocons in the US, to expand their influence in different places around the world, one of which is in Central Asia, because they wanted to establish a base in Afghanistan, and then they moved into Iraq, Syria, and they wanted to knock out Iran as well. So they wanted to establish an absolute hegemony over the region. And this is a very vital region, energy, trade routes, etc. And I think the war on terror, I don't think that most of the people who joined Al-Qaeda were assets for the CIA or any other planners in the US. They thought really that they're fighting against the US. But on the leadership level, for example, the Jolani, Baghdadi, Osama bin Laden, it makes no sense. One of the very close trustees of Osama bin Laden, his name is Ahmed Zaidan, and they used to have pictures together in Tora Bora and in Afghanistan. Now he's the advisor of Jolani. And Jolani was the leader of Al Qaeda. It's like I'm watching a dystopian movie. I'm watching a dystopian movie, and unfortunately, it makes a mockery of this war on terror.
Well, I'm surprised at how quiet everyone is. Everyone flipped out about Mamdani becoming the new mayor of New York, a mayor of New York City. And I saw all of these like MAGA influencers all saying this is the biggest slap in the face to the families of 9/11, victims of 9/11, et cetera, et cetera. But they're quiet when there's literally a terrorist meeting at the White House with President Trump. They're totally quiet about that.
There is something important about Mamdani, by the way. Mamdani is a very liberal person. He's not even an Islamist, right? He goes into the LGBT demonstrations. His wife is a Syrian, and she supported this regime change operation in Syria. And once the regime change happened and the spree of killing started against the minorities, now she's silent about it. Why is that? Why are they silent about all this killing happening in Syria once the regime change happened? But you're also right about the Zionists freaking out about Mamdani. It's a joke. Why would they be afraid of Mamdani and not by Jolani? Jolani is a mastermind behind car bombs in Iraq. This guy has been planning and constructing car bombs and sending them into Shia neighborhoods in Iraq in order to start a civil war. He has lots of blood on his hands. He's soaked in blood. But I feel really sad because I'm Syrian. Seeing Jolani is the representative of my country and meeting with Trump. And unfortunately, this meeting will embolden his grip in the country, and only the people in Syria will pay the price. But Trump doesn't care about that. And whoever is advising him, they think that they can keep Jolani on a leash.
I'm trying to think what it would be like in the United States. What would be a comparable person to ascend to the presidency that you have in Syria? You have a terrorist as the president. I would think maybe Mike Pompeo, or I was thinking like somebody evil who kills people for a living. I don't know.
Like Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It's just awful. No wonder they brought
those people in the US. Those people in the US, they just have big mouths, my friend. Like they give orders to other people to kill. Jolani himself killed people. This guy was on the ground and committing heinous acts. And now he's acting like he's a civilized person, wearing nice watches and wearing suits. And he ran on the platform of saying. He said, "Dear Mujahideen, after Damascus, we are marching to Jerusalem and we're going to liberate Palestine." And once he reached to Damascus, he went to the White House to meet with Donald Trump.
They're like, "You're not going into Palestine anywhere. No. You're our puppet. You're our puppet." Boy. Kevork, great to see you as always. Thank you for your analysis as usual. And it deeply, deeply disturbing. There's no one I'd rather talk to about this. So thank you so much, as always. Great to see you, Kevork. Thanks for staying up late for us over there. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Clayton and Natali. Just quick thing. Kimchi is great, by the way. It's great for the gut health. And most of the diseases comes from the gut. So if you eat kimchi, we eat it a lot here in Germany, your gut will be so much better.
I know. And Kevork is quite a health nut, by the way, as well. So he knows this stuff. Great to see you, Kevork. Thanks so much. Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you so much, my friend. You too.